I'm not gonna lie, man, I don't know how to feel about Sonic right now. For the first time in a long time, I feel optimistic. Sonic Frontiers was a step in the right direction, Shadow Generations was a great expansion to an already good game, Sonic Crossworlds looks promising, and Sega even created a dedicated Sonic pillar to help Sonic Team with quality control. That's pretty huge. But at the same time, I'm scared. Like, really scared. Because we've been here before. Every time Sonic builds momentum, Sega always finds a way to fumble it. And right now, I don't know if they've actually changed or if we're just repeating history again. So today, I just want to talk about the uncertainty of Sonic's future and whether we should be worried about where things are headed. Sonic has been stuck in this never-ending cycle for decades. We get a good game, then a bad one, then an experimental one, and then another redemption arc. Think about it. Sonic Unleashed fixed Sonic 06's mess, Colors and Generation restored faith within the fans, then Lost World happened, and then Forces happened, and now Frontiers and Shadow Generations are bringing hope back again. But who's to say we won't repeat the same cycle? It's exhausting, and that's why so many Sonic fans hesitate to fully trust Sega again. Sonic Team has great ideas, but execution has always been inconsistent. Worse, Sega has actively cut back on funding for the franchise in the past, leaving Sonic Team with little to no resources. That led to the team playing it safe because they literally couldn't afford to take risks. Throughout the 2010s, Sega put more focus on other IPs and external Sonic media rather than the mainline games. The franchise was stuck in a financial headlock, barely any communication, no clear direction, and an over-reliance on nostalgia because it was easier to profit off recycled ideas than innovate. It's no wonder the fans don't trust Sega anymore, even when things seem to be improving. How do we know they'll truly innovate this time? Now, some might argue it's just a kid's game. Why does Sonic need to innovate? Well, to me, Sonic was never just a kid's game. From 1991 to 2009, the franchise appealed to a broad demographic, including older teens and adults. During this time, the series had very intricate level design, innovative gameplay mechanics, and even deeper storylines to give the series more wider appeal. But after 2009, that balance shifted. Sonic Colors was the first game to fully embrace a kid-focused tone, and Sega realized they could profit off younger players without investing as much in development. The exclusivity deal with Nintendo at the time only solidified that shift. Think about it. Why would you put more funds into a development team to making a Sonic game if children are not going to question the quality of said games? To me personally, it sounds like it's easy money, so I understand why they did it. Problem is, older fans like me felt neglected because they stopped targeting our demographic as well. I'm not hating on Sega, I'm just trying to hold them accountable. Throughout that time period, I didn't even know what Sonic was trying to be. This man literally had an identity crisis and Sega didn't know how to fix it. To be fair, he's had an identity crisis since the 2000s, but for some reason in the 2010s, it felt like Sonic was just trapped in a box because Sega and Sonic Team were just too afraid to get that franchise out of its comfort zone. They got too complacent during that time, and the franchise suffered for it. There was no sense of forward momentum, and it felt like we were stuck in the same place. And that's why I keep asking myself over and over again today, is this time really any different? I think part of my fear comes from my own history with Sega. I left the franchise twice, once from 2010 to 2016, and again after Sonic Forces. Here's why. The first reason being inconsistency. See, I grew up in the 2000s, and while I love those 2000 era Sonic games, the constant shifts in styles made it hard to stay invested. I loved Sonic Adventure 1, 2, and Heroes, but by Shadow the Hedgehog and maybe by Sonic 06, and definitely by Sonic Unleashed, I started to kind of not understand what I was playing at the time. Sonic felt way too inconsistent. I can never get comfortable with a new game because the previous game had completely different controls. So as a result, my interest in the series started to die down a little. But the second reason is that Sonic 4 broke me. When Sonic 4 came out, it was the first time I ever actively disliked a video game. Sonic 4 just looked boring, uninteresting, and then it made me want to start playing other franchises. Call of Duty, Borderlands, Grand Theft Auto. Why stay in a franchise that I know is not going anywhere for me when I could go and play other games in the process? And then the third and final reason is that, well, Sonic Colors at the time didn't interest me. When I saw that game, I realized I wasn't Sega's target demographic anymore. So when that game came out, I simply moved on. I missed out on Colors and Generations and Lost World up until a point when I played it later on in the 2010s. But at the time, I completely abandoned the series. But then in 2016, I came back because Sonic Mania and Sonic Forces were announced. And I was getting ready to believe again, but we all know how the following year turned out. Sonic Mania was really good, but Sonic Forces was really bad. I was 19 at the time and I bought that game day one. Okay, so this part, like I said, I don't know what you guys were thinking when you were designing this. I mean, what the fuck is this, bro? Okay, again, no left stick. I lost my rings, it's whatever, I don't give a fuck. And right here is definitely where I don't need to hold on analog stick. Like I said, look. Now right here, I'm just gonna show you guys my controller and then just, yeah. No analog control whatsoever. This is all scripted. It's just Sonic going on a snake for some reason. Yeah, so I just beat this whole save without using a left stick. Great level design, Sonic team. At the time, I was trying to reconnect with my favorite series, only to then realize that my favorite series had let me down even worse than before. That was the moment I almost stopped being a Sonic fan entirely. My childhood franchise slapped me right in the face again. Fool me once? Shame on you. But fool me twice? Well, then I'm just an idiot. And bro, they really tried to charge $2 for Supersonic and Forces as a DLC. Y'all think I was gonna forget that? Sega really tried to pull a predatory tactic similar to what EA was trying to do when they first started the microtransaction stuff back in the day. So seeing them do that was the cherry on top for me to just say, I think I might be done being a Sonic fan. A lot of Sonic fans have their own version of the story. We all have that one Sonic game that hurt us, and it's why trusting Sega again feels so difficult. So, where do we go from here? If we were to trust Sega again, what is the first steps that we do in order to build that relationship back with them? In my opinion, the first step is accountability. They now understand that Sonic needs a bigger budget. You're not going to make any quality games if you're barely going to fund your development team to make those quality games. This has been going on for 2 decades, ever since the 2000s, but now that development costs are rising up, Sega needs to put more money into Sonic Team and get that quality control under control, because fan patience is running thin. We are now in 2025, and I think there should be no excuses if the next Sonic game was to not be as good. So I hope it is going to be good. The second step is constructive criticism. Blind hate doesn't help anybody, and blind defense only normalizes bad games and bad behavior. Like I said, they charge $2 for Supersonic as DLC, and they have released some pretty bad Sonic games in a consecutive manner. So I think the best thing we can do is to critique Sega with nuance. Be respectful, but firm. If they mess up, we call it out. But if they do well, we give them credit. Doing the inverse is only going to make the franchise feel stagnant. So we have to approach constructive criticism in a well-mannered way, especially now that they're taking fan feedback into consideration. And finally, it's a hard one, but hope. Even if you don't love the direction Sonic is heading, at least hope the games are good enough for the other fans to enjoy. I didn't love Sonic Forces, but I told myself, watch in 8 years, some kid is going to grow up and say, Sonic Forces was really fun when I was a kid. I thought that game was terrible, but if you're a teenager who grew up playing Forces and you like it, more power to you. Frontiers was a step in the right direction, and Shadow Generation showed that they can still innovate. It showed that Sega and Sonic teams still have some juice in them to innovate the boost formula in a way that should have happened years ago. But in all honesty, the next mainline Sonic game will be the real test to see if Sega is going to change their ways. I'm proud of what they've done for Sonic Frontiers and Sonic Generations, but those two games don't erase years and decades of trauma that they've caused majority of the fan base. So it's in mine and your best interest as the fans to go into the next game with skeptical optimism. Just like how we did with Sonic Frontiers, we do the same thing here. Because at least this way, it'll give us hope for a better future for the Blue Blur together. Thank you guys so much for watching. Drop a comment below and share your own experiences with the Sonic franchise, and let's talk about our grievances with Sega. Let's get it all out there and hopefully look forward for a better future. I want to hear your breaking point with Sega. Was there a moment that made you stop trusting them? And looking ahead, are we setting ourselves up for another disappointment, or is this finally a new era for the Blue Blur? Let's get a discussion going in the comments. I'd love to hear y'all thoughts on this. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more Sonic discussions, and check out my previous Sonic content and follow me on Twitter for more gaming discussions. This is Breck Effect, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace out.